recording the webinar, and hopefully we'll make it available to you afterwards, and then to any of your colleagues that have missed it. So as I say, today our focus is on Release 5 in respect of journals. And in the webinar today, we will be explaining the new journal reports, how they work and how to use them. And we'll also be talking about the metrics. Now, I think it would be useful to just make a start by talking about the metrics in Release 5 and some of the key differences in Release 5. That's a helpful starting point. Now, I think, and looking at the names here, I'm sure most of you are well and truly familiar with our old friend, the JR1 report from Release 4. And you will know that in that report, usage was broken down, and we had the column for reporting period PDF, and we had the column for reporting period HTML, and then of course the reporting period total. Now, one of the consequences of those Release 4 metrics is something that is sometimes referred to as the platform effect. So, as you're all aware, some platforms take the user first to an abstract of an article, and the user may then choose to view the HTML and or download the PDF. Other platforms take the user directly to the HTML. They don't go to an abstract first, and the user may then also choose to download the PDF. And the latter type of platform, the platform where users hit the HTML right away, tended to have higher usage figures than the first type of platform, and hence the platform effect. And the result of this was that some librarians really discounted altogether the HTML views because they felt that that was leading to overcounting, particularly on those platforms where the user didn't really choose to go to the HTML. It was an automatic process. So in Release 5, we have introduced new metrics which really deal with that old problem of the platform effect. And these metrics work no matter how the platform is configured. So those two metrics are total item requests and unique item requests. And those are the two metrics that you'll see on your Release 5 reports. And we no longer have that breakdown between HTML and PDF. And I think the reason we don't have that breakdown anymore will become apparent as we talk through how those new metrics play out in real life. So I'm going to hand over to Paula, who's going to talk us through some examples of those metrics in relation to user actions. And I'm having to move the slides on for Paula, so she will probably ask me to do that from time to time, so do bear with us. So anyway, Paula, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. Okay, so as it says on your screen at the moment, one of the questions that we get quite regularly is how the R5 reports relate to the way that things were counted in R4. So we're going to look at that in a lot more depth now. Next slide, please. Okay, so on the screen here, you can see that we have an example of a journal, and you can see that the user has clicked on the abstract, they've clicked on the full text, and they've clicked on the PDF. So it's just about to go on and explain how that was shown in Release 4, and then how that shows now in Release 5. Next slide, please. So in Release 4, with these clicks, the results that you would get were reporting period HTML successful requests were 1, reporting period PDF successful requests were also 1, So the reporting period total successful requests showed up as 2 in your release 4 report. It's a little bit different in release 5. Next slide, please. So in release 5, using the total item investigations and the unique item investigations, total item requests and unique item requests, you can see that the figures are a little different there. So total item investigations are 3 because you've had someone click on the abstract and the full text and the PDF. However, it's all for the same article. So in terms of the uniqueness, it's actually 1. So it's 1 unique item investigation. Now, when it comes to the total item requests, so that's the full text and the PDF in this example, there are 2 total item requests. However, it's still the same article. So in terms of uniqueness, it's 1 unique item request. Next slide, please. Okay, so most libraries, if you're looking to calculate cost per use, the most useful metric to use is unique item requests. If you want to compare usage over time with your release 4 reports, then the most useful metric to use is total item requests. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this example, we've got a couple of examples here, release 5 and release 4 side by side. So for release 5, in the first example, the total item requests are 704, but the unique item requests are 452. The way that would have shown up in release 4, your reporting period total is 704. The HTML usage is 430, and the PDF usage was 274. For the second example, the total item requests, we have 256 total item requests, and for the unique item requests, it's 215. In release 4, the reporting period total was still 256, but that was split down into HTML usage 100 and PDF usage 156. We also need to mention all of these figures exclude open access gold usage. Now, we will be running a webinar on open access reports and how they now work in release 5, but do bear in mind when you're looking at your journal reports that these reports actually exclude OA gold usage. So we've put a little reminder there on this slide. Remember to compare like with like. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to go on to examine the release 5 reports in a little more detail. And what we've done here is take the figures for particular months and show you the reporting period total. So the total item requests for the academic pediatrics journal, the reporting period journal for the months we've given there is 1,247, split down by month. The unique item requests are 795 because those total item requests may well include somebody actually looking at the same article or same item more than once. Same with academic radiology. So we've got total item requests are 704, but the unique item requests are 452. And then there's a third example there. In this case, for that final one, ACC current journal review, total item requests is the same as unique item requests because in that case, it was 3 individual journal articles that were looked at. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the release 5, there are 5 reports that will provide information for you about your journal usage. So we're going to start with the title master report, but you can see there's the title master report, there's the journal requests excluding OA Gold, which is TR_J1, journal access denied, which is TR_J2, journal usage by access type, TR_J3, and journal requests by YOP, which again excludes OA Gold, and that's TR_J4 or TRJ4 as we often refer to it. So we'll just go on and tell you a little bit more about those reports in a little more detail. Next slide. Thank you, Lorraine. Okay, so Title Master Report. So this shows activity across all metrics for entire titles. Now this may be books or it may be journals. The TR is a very powerful report. It has a lot of information. It can be filtered according to user needs, and there are 7 standard views in total. 4 of those standard views apply to journals. Now, master reports are essential for everybody. They're especially essential for commercial usage consolidation services and consortia services, because what it does is simplify the processing. You only need 1 report. Okay, so this is a very powerful report. Next slide, please. So the standard views, we've mentioned that there are several standard views on the TR report. So TRJ1, this is for journal requests. And again, I know we're labouring the point a little, but just to emphasise, this excludes OA Gold. Now, TRJ1 shows full text activity for all content that is not Gold Open Access. And the 2 metric types are total item requests and unique item requests. Next slide, please. So TRJ1 is very useful for calculating the cost per use of the content that your library or organisation pays for, because it excludes OA Gold. So it really lets you understand where your subscription money is going. OA Gold, just to clarify that, means open access articles that were funded by the author or the author's funder or institution. Next slide, please. So the next standard view is TRJ2. Now this is journal access denied, and this shows where users were denied access to journals because the institution didn't have a license for the content. You might know that as a turnaway, so that's just something to bear in mind. That so the denied access for no license is usually a turnaway. It can also mean where simultaneous use or concurrency licenses were exceeded. So you can see the 2 metric types that are crucial for this standard view are limit exceeded and no license. I'm just going to hand you back to Lorraine, and she'll take you through the rest of the standard views.
Thank you. Thank you, Paula. So moving on to the TRJ3 report, and this is journal usage by access type, and it shows all the applicable metrics broken down by access type. And in this report you have 4 metrics shown: total item investigations, total item requests, unique item investigations, and unique item requests. So I've got a little example here for you to have a look at. I would say, just so that these reports fit on the screen, they are truncated slightly, so you don't have all the columns. I'm just showing you the ones that are relevant. And as you can see here, in this column, access type, that shows the usage by access type, whether it was controlled, you paid a subscription for it, or whether it was open access Gold. And as I say, you have all 4 of those metrics there. Now the TRJ3 report is quite a useful report in many respects. And there has been some misunderstanding because when some people first viewed the TRJ1, they sort of got the impression that all the Gold open access usage has somehow disappeared from the reports. But that usage is there, it's in the master reports and also in the TRJ3. One of the useful things about the TRJ3 is that you can compare this report with the release 4 JR1 report to get a picture of trends, usage trends over time. Because you'll remember that Paula said that when you're doing that trend comparison over time, you need to compare like with like. And you may well remember the JR1 report included Gold Open Access. So if you want to do that straight comparison with the Gold Open Access included, you need to do the TRJ3. So it's very useful for comparisons over time, and also increasingly useful as well, because many librarians want to see what use is being made by their users of Gold Open Access content, what percentage is open access content, and so on. So a useful snapshot for a number of use cases. Now we're moving on to the TRJ4. Again, a really useful report. And it shows the Fortex usage of non-gold open access by year of publication. Now this, and it has two metric types: total item requests and unique item requests. Now this can be a really essential report if you subscribe to back files, or sometimes called archival files, from a publisher, and you will be paying for that back file or archival content under a separate license, and you will want to be able to separate out the use of the archival backfile content from the current content that you pay for under your ongoing subscription. Now, when we were developing Release 5, our desire was to include an attribute called, I can't remember what we're going to actually call it now, but it was isArchive, so that you could identify and sort by archival access. But then we realized that that was rather impossible to achieve, and I hadn't realized this before, but some publishers, the dates of the archives they sell to their library customers are not always consistent in every country. So it would be impossible for them to separate out archival content in the reports by customer, because it varied so much. I hope that makes sense. But in order to be able to do that, the library needs to know the year of publication so that you can filter out that archival content. So, I'll just talk to all that. Yes, so that you can filter out the year of content. So again, I've got some sort of examples for you to have a look at here. On the top example is a Release 5 report, and down at the bottom here we have the Release 4 JR5 report. So these are, in a way, if you like, sort of mirror reports, but we have made some specific changes. One of those changes is that we've already mentioned TRJ4 is limited to controlled usage only, and of course archival content is going to be controlled usually. Now each year has a separate row, as you can see up here. In Release 4 that was a rather different, because each year had a separate column. There are two metrics, as I've already mentioned, per title, and there are no year groupings as we had in Release 4 for the older years, and usage is shown per month. So a really useful report from that point of view. So we'll now have a think about the key differences between Release 5 and Release 4 when looking at journal usage. And again, I would say that the slides have been truncated just to make them fit. So in summary here, I'm just going to run through again those key differences, what you need to look out for, particularly if you're comparing across time, and they are as follows. Now, you need to watch out for the OA, whether the OA gold is included or not. So here in this example, we have the TRJ1. OA gold is excluded from that report. So you do need to be mindful about that. And as Paula mentioned, we have a webinar coming up next month, really delving more specifically into that whole issue about the reports and open access content. Again, in the old reports, we were talking, as we said earlier, about the PDF and HTML usage, and then we had the reporting period total. But now, for the reasons we've explained, we have two metrics in that TRJ1 report, and in fact more than two metrics in some of the other reports. We no longer include journals with zero usage in the reports. Now, this was quite a controversial decision, and it's one that we received a lot of feedback about when we were consulting about Release 5. And a lot of librarians, understandably, were unhappy about not including the zero usage. The reason that we ultimately decided to not include journals with zero usage is that many platforms use different systems to identify access control from the systems that they use to report usage. And that meant that customers would receive reports about every single title on that publisher's platform, whether they subscribed to that content or not. And that meant in practice that there would be hundreds, I think thousands sometimes, of zero usage included in the reports. And that could be misleading because librarians might think that they actually subscribed to that content and they didn't. And it also was making the reports too big. So that is why zero usage is excluded in Release 5. And the other thing, of course, and we've alluded to this already, is that in Release 4, we had this nice line total for all journals, and we don't have that in Release 5. No totals, I hear you gasp. How terrible. The reason for the no totals is because, of course, all the reports have more than one metric. So you cannot automate those totals because you would be adding up two different types of metrics and it wouldn't make sense. However, we have created the format of the reports in such a way that you can filter them and you can create pivot tables. Now, I must thank Athena Cooper, a member of our technical advisory group, for this wonderful slide about pivot tables. I wonder whether they sell it at IKEA. I don't know if you have IKEA in all of your countries, but it's a shop where you buy fairly cheap furniture. So for some of us, the use of Excel to pivot tables and so on is perhaps a new thing. And not only pivot tables, but you can create charts and look for values and so on. But for some of us, that is uncharted territory. But I'm pleased to say that we have help at hand. Oops, I don't know why I can't. Oh, help at hand. Because Connie Young from our executive committee, who is a great expert on this, has created a Counter Foundation class to explain how to use Excel to filter your journal reports, to create pivot tables, and to calculate totals for usage metrics. This is the URL for that really useful tutorial, online tutorial, and I will, it's not easy to write down these URLs. I will also send it out with the recording after this session. One of the other things I do want to mention while we're on here is something that Melissa, who is on this webinar, has reminded me about, and that is about session cycles. Now, session cycles relate not just to journals, they relate to other types of content books as well. But it is appropriate to explain this because unique requests can overcount sometimes if a session happens to cross the 1 hour counting cycle on a platform. So in release 5, when we're looking at those that usage, we are generally dividing up the day into these 1 hour slices and really taking an hour as a session if it runs through. Now, it could be that a user comes in and perhaps views the HTML, and that would count as one unique use and one total use. And during their time doing this, the session goes into the next hour, and in that next hour they decide to also download the PDF. Now in that case, because as far as the system is concerned it's a new session, even though it's the same user continuing their work, that would show up again as another unique item and another total of 1. So I think Melissa's made a really good point in just flagging that up. It's not 100% perfect. There is that session issue to deal with, but of course we have to have some way of breaking down those sessions. Melissa, is there anything you want to add to that? If so, please unmute yourself.
No, that's great. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that that Counter 5 is fantastic, but it's not solved all of the problems of overcounting.
No, not yet, but we're working on it, Melissa. and I must say it is really you know, the help of our technical advisory group who works so hard on all these issues, like Melissa, that we are trying to deal with these things. So I have to give them a little call out now. Anyway, I think now it's time for your questions. So we have a question from Amanda, and she said, so just to confirm, you also count research funder public access in the GOA reports, e.g. papers that are freely available are but may not be open access, otherwise known as research public access. Now that is a really good question actually, Amanda, and thank you very much for raising it. And in fact, I should have thought to explain that before. So I think you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, you're talking about content which is open to the public, but is not gold open access in terms of an APC, for example, has not been paid for it. And that's true. In release 5, that type of content is counted under controlled. And again, when we were doing the consultation around release 5, we very much thought about introducing another access type called other free to read, which would identify that other type of content. But in our consultations with the publishers and vendors, it became clear that very often that was very difficult content for them to identify in a consistent way, because it moved from in front of the paywall to behind the paywall or vice versa. Generally, gold open access is always open, really from its first publication. So that is why we haven't thus far been able to include those other free types of open access. Sorry, open access types. So I hope that answers your question. And let me just skip down to yeah, I hope so. If I haven't answered it properly, Amanda, please let me know. So sorry, I'm just going back to the questions in order of appearance. That was Amanda's question. And then we have a question from Pauline Smith. If I filter TRJ3 controlled unique item requests, are the numbers the same as the TRJ1 unique item requests? Yes, they are. That's right, Pauline, because the TRJ1 excludes the gold open access. And if you take the TRJ3 and filter on controlled, you will be getting the same answer. And Jenny says, for the TRJ4 report, could the spreadsheet be reconfigured to show like the JR5 reports with dates along the top rather than multiple lines for each title? I believe not, Jenny, and that really is to do with the fact that in release 5, what you're seeing in the standard views is a subset of the information from the master report. And that's why the formatting has to be consistent throughout. So I believe that's why that wouldn't be possible to do. Right, Judith and colleagues, thank you for your question. We would like to use no license metrics to make a decision to buy a journal archive or not. Is there no license data per YOP in the title master report? I believe there is. Melissa, do you know that?
Sorry, no.
No. I think what we're going to do, I think the answer is yes, but I'm going to check that. I'm going to check that for you, Judith, and come back if I've got that wrong. It's quite difficult to remember all the things in your head. Right, Jackie says, what is the best R4 and R5 report for an overall usage total comparable over time? What is the best release 4 and release 5? Well, I think what you probably want to do if you're comparing over time, as we say, if you take your release 4 reports, the totals from your release 4 reports, and in the TRJ3 you take the that's right, yeah, and the TRJ3 you take the total requests, you will get a pretty accurate comparison over time. I would just say, Jackie, there might be a little minute difference because there is a little bit of underlying process which has changed slightly from release 4 to release 5, but that is really minimal. So that is your best way to compare over time. Pauline, right, okay, but we want titles, we have, even though the usage is 0. Yeah. Okay. Well, yes, Pauline, you've come back on that very issue that we mentioned about the not having the the 0 usage in the new reports, and they will make your usage graphs broken. As I said, this was, and we know that this is an issue for many libraries, and we did a lot of research, and as I say, at the end of a great deal of deliberation, we have excluded them because of the problems of the size of the reports, particularly from some of the vendors. Now, of course, there are other ways that you can use, for example, KBART reports with your with your Excel reports to achieve that. So it's not a magic, it's not a silver bullet, but it can be done using the KBART reports. Does anyone on the webinar have any experience of doing that and would like to contribute on that point? No, I don't think so. Okay, I'll try and get a bit more information about that for you and come back to it when we do the Q&A. Right. How do you count? Oh, right. This is Anita and Bente, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. How do you count when a user opens 2 different articles from the same issue of a journal? Okay. Well, if a user opens 2 different articles from the same journal, each of those articles is a unique item. So I think this is where the concept of unique comes from. Each article is unique. Right. Erica Lee asks, what is the difference between item requests and item investigations? Well, that's a good question. Item investigations relate to all the actions that a user might make on a platform when they are exploring content. So they might, for example, look at the abstract, look at a link, or any sort of information about the content item that they are interested in. And all of those actions count as investigations. And also counted as investigations are viewing the HTML and downloading the PDF or other format. Requests only apply to viewing the HTML or downloading a PDF. Now, that's all quite complicated to get over in a few words, but we do have a really good YouTube video about the metrics that explains that concept a lot more. And when we get down to the, I'll go down to that now, in fact. Yeah, so we have our YouTube channel and the URL is there. And there, Erica, we explain quite a bit. I think it's lesson 3. Is it lesson 3? I think so. Where we explain about the metrics. So you'll find a lot more information there. Right. So Sophie has come back on the session length. Am I right in thinking with regard to session length, if a user accessed the full text or an article and then access the same article an hour and a half later, for example, it would count as 2 unique item requests? Yes, that is right, because that session time would have finished and they would be in effect in a new session. So if a user's actions around the same article spread across that time period, it would indeed count as 2 unique item requests. And this is one of the reasons why Melissa asked me to flag this up, because it's not necessarily apparent, because it's to do with the underlying process of the counter data. So it's good to make people aware of it. And Demetrius asks, what is the duration of a user session in order to be assigned as unique? I won't quote off the top of my head, Demetrius, because it's a little bit complicated. But in the code of practice, there are a number of ways that a user session can be calculated by the publisher or vendor. But generally speaking, and sometimes it is, they are able to identify it more tightly, but if not, it is an hour is the time that is used. And then Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I think that answers most of your questions. I will come back a little bit more on that KBART list in terms of the zero usage, and we'll post out some information there. And one of the people on the webinar has just sent me privately an email about that, or message about that. So we'll try and share that with you. And she's happy to say they will be able to coordinate anyone wanting to know more about that. So I will follow up with her afterwards, and we'll try and get you some more information about that. So do we have, before we wrap up, do we have any other questions? And indeed, Paula, have I forgotten to mention anything critical?
I don't think so. Just to emphasize that people can get in touch with the help desk directly. Often what happens is that we consult with the tag, who Lorraine has mentioned, who we could not operate without, and they provide masses of technical input to try and help you. We do update the content on the counter website all the time, and there are links on there to all of the various friendly guides and to the YouTube videos as well. Okay, so you can get in touch with us directly, and we'll do our best to get back to you with an answer that will make sense.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. And indeed, thank you for your kind offer. Oh, sorry, as well, Athena's on the line, and she has also said that she's happy to share some examples in Excel of an Excel spreadsheet using KBART. So I will liaise with you, Athena, and I will liaise with the other person who made that kind offer, and we'll try and get some information out there to everybody to help them with that particular problem. So thank you very much for joining us. And if you have any questions or any points that we haven't covered, or you haven't managed to get into the chat box, please do contact me or Paula, and we'll be really happy to answer your questions. Thank you all very much.